We are here at the Southern Maryland Comic-Con talking to Tim Seeley. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Seeley.
Anytime. It's my pleasure.
Now, you've worked for, well, I understand, every comic company except for Oni Press.
Yeah, everybody that's around at the moment, every big company I've worked for except for, one. So in some capacity, what that means, a cover or something or what, but I've done it, I have.
I got you. Now, of course, I think a lot of people are most familiar with your work with Hack and Slash, but you've also done Witchblade. A lot of folks might know you through that. But you've got a new book that's out, Revival.
Yep.
And it's a departure from the ordinary sort of zombie type story, even though this does involve people coming back to life. Tell us a little bit about Revival.
Basically, Revival is the story of a small town wherein on one day, January 1st, at 2 in the morning, 23 people come back to life for no particular known reason, at least to the people that are living in this town. How do you deal with people that you've already mourned, that you've accepted as dead, or that you were happy that they were dead, and just all the sort of things that go with it, as sort of seen through the lead character, who is the daughter of the sheriff. She's a sort of beat cop.
Talk a little bit about these differences between the fact that, okay, this isn't your standard zombie fiction type of thing.
Obviously the story of people coming back to life is not new, and pretty much Jesus has the most popular and most famous one. But George Romero really sort of, and before him, the guy who I can't think of but wrote I Am Legend. They pretty much created this sort of idea of the undead as a symbol stand-in for a post-apocalyptic survival-based thing in which we've turned on each other. So that's kind of the most popular zombie stuff that you see now, especially Walking Dead, being an homage to Night of the Living Dead. It's really more about kind of man's inhumanity to each other via these people that were our family, they were our loved ones, but now they're monsters in which we must shoot in the face, which is a completely great genre of which I have enjoyed many times. But I feel like it's been done a lot of times, and I think Walking Dead has taken it to the logical evolution by keeping that story going and finding out more about that world that these people live in. So with Revival, I wanted to do something sort of in that vein, but not be about necessarily like the survival aspects of it, and that scene that happens in every one of those stories, which is undead grandma's walking at you, and do you have the guts to shoot her in the face because she's not grandma anymore. This story, I didn't want that to be about it. I wanted it to be about how do people deal with this more specifically? Like, would you be jealous if somebody you knew died and came back and you still had cancer? Would you, how would you do it if financially you had benefited from them dying and now you have to pay back that will money you got? So it's more about those sort of things.
Now, there is an unusual amount of you that happens to be in this particular story, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I wanted to do with the story was, when I was working on Witchblade, I really found that, because I set it in Chicago, and I found that I really enjoyed writing it because I knew the places that Sarah was going. I knew, the vibe and how it smelled and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to do that again, and I grew up in central Wisconsin, in the town that we set the story in, which is, I grew up actually in a town called Ringgold, but it's outside of Wausau, Wisconsin, which is a town of roughly about 40,000 people, with a surrounding area of a lot of really small towns. So yeah, there's tons of sort of my own experiences in there. The whole theme, I think, of the book being sort of, the being trapped somewhere, feeling like you can't leave, in this case, literally because they're quarantined, but in my case, being a teenager, and teenagers are always angsty and I always want to leave wherever they are. And that's that sort of feeling. And then a lot of the weird little stuff that is the kind of thing that you like, that when you describe to someone, you say, you couldn't make this up. And that's this stuff. In the first issue, there's a scene in which the cop is called to a murder, and she goes to murder, and it's of a zorse, which is a half zorse, half zebra that are bred for like horse shows and sometimes for live nativity scenes, crazy stuff like that. And I didn't make that up. That actually happened in central Wisconsin. Yeah, there's just a lot of that little stuff of just, the weird Wisconsin, oddity, just odd people and being sort of far out in the middle of nowhere and not really needing to talk to anyone or needing anyone else and liking it that way. So a lot of that kind of stuff.
Now, also, the fact that the lead characters are women. I mean, you've written a lot of stuff with women as the lead characters. Do you have particular affinity for female characters? Because you seem to write them extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do prefer writing women. I don't. Maybe that's weird. I don't know if it says about me, but I do know that like one of the things when I first got into comics, and the reason that my first book that I put out that had any sort of recognition had a female character was because I felt like there wasn't enough female characters that women wanted to read. And in the case of Cassie Hacks from Hack Slash, it was the thing of, okay, women like girls that kick ass, but I think part of the problem is that the only kind of females we have in comics currently, in superhero comics, horror comics, are women that kick ass and have gigantic jugs, or that like that kind of, they only have one body type. They're all sort of the same way. So the idea was, let's make a girl that looks like the girls that read these comics. So that's why Cassie kind of has that goth, punk, suicide girl, sort of aesthetic to her. And in the case of, now 8 years on, as an older guy, there's still not enough lead female characters in comics. So, if I have to be sort of the guy that's going to keep doing that, I'm fine with that. There's a lot of other ones that have come out since, a lot of great ones, obviously, but in this case, it was, I'm not a teenager anymore. I kind of wanted to write an adult woman in a situation where she's a single mother. She used to be kind of a party girl, and now she's sort of dealing with consequences now that she's in her late 20s. So that was the kind of character I wanted to see and really kind of explore her relationship with her sister, because, I have 2 brothers and I know really how that works. So I kind of wanted to play around with a relationship between 2 sisters who are separated by like 6 years, of age, and so not really close.
Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fabulous art by, is it Mike Norton who's doing the art? Okay, all right. How closely did you and he collaborate on the look of the book?
A lot, and it really helps. Mike and I share a studio together, so he literally is close. He came into kind of us talking about wanting to do a book together with, I want to draw normal people. I want to draw, something set in the real world. We basically, he's been to my hometown, and I sent him a bunch of pictures, and he's from a town in Tennessee, which is not any bigger than my town. So we kind of found out that there was a shared experience, and the only thing that really separated us was snow, of which he lives in Chicago now, so he's very familiar with. But yeah, I mean, one of the first things I did when we decided we were going to do this book is I went home for Thanksgiving in November and drove around for like a day just taking photos with my iPhone of stuff that I thought was kind of beautiful or ugly or both, and gave that to Mike. And that stuff became the first 3 pages of the book, is really just these snapshots of like rural, wintry Wisconsin. And it's funny, when I showed the cover to someone, which has this sort of very particular painting of a barn on it, and someone said, "Is that Wisconsin?" Like, yeah, that's exactly. They could recognize it just by that sort of aesthetic. Because if you've ever been through Wisconsin, it is, in winter specifically, it's miles and miles of weathered gray barns with speckles of red where they used to be, and snow. And it's just sort of that aesthetic is really recognizable, and I think very distinct and kind of creepy. So that kind of combined to make that book, and Mike really captures that, I think, throughout the series.
Well, the art is fantastic. The writing absolutely grabs you. I mean, I read the first issue. It's convention exclusive here, and I was waiting for the second issue. Say, well, is the second issue a convention exclusive too? Because it's not right that you leave people hanging the way you do. But kind of twist.
That's, people Mike and I talked about this. Mike was a huge fan of the show Lost, and so he kind of we talked about, if we're gonna do something, let's have it be. The way that Lost treated stuff was every episode you went, what? But, well, huh? So really what we wanted to do was have something that, 1, ended that way every issue, and 2, we want all the covers to be, yeah, but, well, huh, on the cover. So, for instance, the second issue has a guy in a snowmobile jacket doing an exorcism while he drinks a beer, and the third issue has a woman opening the basement and seeing like this weird alien thing sitting in a circle on the floor. And the fourth one has a sort of weird, like a girl dressed in lingerie turning over a guy and he's all bloody. And the fourth one has a woman puking up a ghost. So every issue is like, wait, but it all ties into the story. But I think when people sort of really see they're going to be surprised, I think, when they. I want to keep you guessing. That's my favorite kind of stuff too. The older you get, the more you sort of go, yeah, I've seen everything. So the key, I think, with this kind of stuff is for me to go, no, I'm going to make up something you haven't. Like, hopefully I do that.
Well, I've read a lot of comics, and I can tell you, just from what I've read, I've never seen anything like what you've got in Revival.
Good. Yeah, it's a rural noir, supernatural zombie story with some jokes.
Huh? What?
Yeah.
Tim Seeley, thank you so much for being with us.
Well done.